Okay, welcome everyone. In this video, I'm going to explain chapter 2, which consists about the topic Thinking Like an Economist. This is a book of Gregory Mankiw, which is called The Principles of Economics. So the chapter basically introduces the economic language. So how is important like these different words in order to explain our facts. So as for example demand, supply, excess of demand, shortage, um, or elasticity. So these terms that we will learn with the time, it, with which make part of how economists think about problems. The chapter actually talks about the economics and experimentation, this relation with the science, in fact, because there is like behind the economics part, we have the scientific method. So, for example, when we talk about the quantity of money, so that there is in the economy and there is inflation, so we can go through facts, through our data. So we can go through data and we can see how and in which cases we see the quantity of money which is related with inflation. But there is a great difference because we just like can manipulate this stuff with the facts. We cannot like go to a laboratory and inject money in the money and to see what turn around, what happened there. So that's the important part. The other part that you see in the chapter is about assumptions. We just like try to assume several facts in order to interpret in an easy way the real life. So instead of, we know that there are dozens of countries and there are thousands of goods, we know that maybe we can manipulate and understand the basic part with just two countries and two goods or maybe one good. And we try to analyze different realities throughout economic model. So maybe it's so hard to put in some model all the facts that maybe affect, but we just like try to put the most relevant facts in order to grasp, in order to understand what really matters. So the first model is the circular flow diagram. So how does it work? So this is a visual model of the economy that shows how dollars flow through markets among households and firms. So the economy is sustained just like in households and firms. We see that how this economy has two types of decision makers. So hey, they decide how the economy works. They are the households and firms. So in the one part we have the firms. They produce goods and services. But in order to produce these goods and services, they need inputs. What are the inputs? So they need labor, land, and capital. What is the capital? So we can associate first like buildings and machines. So they need these inputs, and these inputs they are called factor of productions. So labor, land, and capital, they are factors of production that they come to the firm, and they just like the output is service or a good. Okay, so in the other side, the households, we assume that they own the factors of production, so they are the owners of labor, which is true, this is a fact, but maybe it's not so clear when they are the owners of the lending and capital. but we are talking about, as we said before, we are simplifying, and we are saying that the households are the owners of all the factors of productions, and in the same time they consume all the goods and services that firms produce. The households and firms, they interact in two different markets. There is one market of goods and services, and the other is the market of the factors of production. Okay, the households, they are sellers, they are the sellers, and the market of productions, and the firms are the buyers. In this case, it's not the sellers, they are the buyers. And in the market of goods, the firms, they are the sellers, and the households, they are the buyers. So the households the provide firms the inputs that the firms use to produce goods and services. In the circular flow diagram, we will see our inner loop, so an arrow, which basically represents the flow of goods and services between the households and firms. So the household sell the use of their labor, okay, and lending capital to the firms. So as we said before, the households sell the factor of production. On the other side, the firms use these factors to produce goods and services. So the factors of productions flow from the households to the firms, because the households, they are the owners of the factors of production, and the goods and services flow in the other way from firms to households. We have an outer loop which represents the flow of dollars. So households spend money to buy goods and services from the firms, but the firms use some of the revenue from these sales to pay for the factor of production. So the profit of the firm's owner, who themselves are member of households, so the profit they are going to again be in the circular flow, because the firms, they're going to be at the end households, so they will buy some services or goods. Okay, so in order to understand better what we said before, so let's think about the households. So the households, we know that from one part they buy and consume goods and services, but on the other side they own the factor of production and they sell them. So the first arrow is about the spending. So what households spend? They spend goods and services. Okay, so this is, they go to the markets for goods and services, where the firms, they sell, and the households buy. Okay, instead of spending, what do the households receive? They receive goods and services bought, that they already bought. On the other side, we have the firms, which they produce the sales goods and services, but at the same time they hire and use factors of production. So if we think how they interact with the market for goods and services, well, they go through the goods and services sold. And why they receive, when they provide these goods and services, they receive revenue. So the other market is the factor of production, where the household sell because they are the owner of the factor of production, and the firms buy what they need. They need land, capital, and labor. So how interact the firms with these factors? So they provide these factors throughout wages, which is the labor, okay, rent, which is the land, and profit, which is the capital that they have to pay. But instead of paying that, what do they receive? They receive the inputs of production, which is the same, the factor of production. So these markets for factor of production, they provide to the household some income, okay, but instead of this income they provide labor land, and capital. So we see throughout here how the blue arrow, it represents the flow of dollars, which is in the outer in the outer side, and in the other side we have the green arrow, which represents the flow of goods and services. Okay, this is our first model, and we can grasp in the basic part how the economics or economy works. So the second model that I'm going to present is about the production possibilities frontier. So we have to assume in this case the just produce only two goods. So we can say that cars and computers, in order to follow the same example of the book, and together they use all the factor of production available. So all the factor of production, what is the factor of production? Remember, it's going to be land, it's going to be capital, and it's going to be labor. So they are using all the factors of production in order to produce cars and computers. So the production possibilities frontier is a graph that shows the various combination of output, cars and computers. So the first model was a circular flow, and this model is just a graph. So how we can understand that? So they can produce given the available factors. So they cannot go beyond that. You can just produce what you have. You cannot produce more. So we have the two axes. We are going to put in the x-axis the cars, and the other axis we're going to put the personal computers. So this is going to be, let's say that this line is going to be the frontier, the production possibilities frontier. So the economy cannot pass over there. So let's imagine the first point, which is going to be this. This is going to be the economy. They are going to produce 700 cars, and with 700 cars they can produce 2000 computers. This is the point A. It lays in the frontier. What about if we have the second point? So the second point we label C, which is 600 cars and 2200 personal computers. What is interesting to see here, we can grasp, see here the opportunity cost of cars. Why? Because, for example, in this case we have 700 cars with 2000 personal computer. So the opportunity cost of producing 200 personal computer more is 100 cars. This is the opportunity cost. Once I produce 200 personal computer more, I just give up of producing 100 cars. Which is other important fact here. Maybe as you see here, in this fact the slope is so high. What does it mean? It means when you just need to produce a little bit more of cars, you need to sacrifice too much computers. Okay, this is the case because all the capacity of cars is already the maximum. On the other side, when we are here, maybe this is, don't think that this is like negative slope, maybe it's like kind of bad graph, but it go like kind of here, it go to a flat, the slope is going to be a flat. What does it mean? It means that in order to change the cars, in order to change the personal computer just a little bit, you need to sacrifice too much cars. Okay, so this is the naturality of the resources. When you are like close to the maximum, you are using all the capacity, so you have to sacrifice too much in order to have just a little bit of the other good. So they are the two good, the 2 points. So this is called the production possibilities frontier, and this stuff, this set is all. So my economy, they can produce inside this fact, they can produce inside this stuff. But what about if we are talking about the point B with 300 cars and 1000 computers? So we are inside the production possibility frontier, but we are going to talk a little bit more about this point. And what about this other point, which is the D point? Unfortunately, it is beyond the production possibility frontier and devoted to the scarcity of the resources. It is an impossible point to reach for this economy. Given the factors, they cannot go there and produce. So these points, 1,000, 3,000, it means the maximum that the economy they can produce. So for example, if the economy just the economy specializes in cars, they are be able just to produce 1,000 cars. And on the other side, if they specialize just in personal computers, they can just arrive to 3,000 personal computers. So if we talk about AC points, they are the efficient points. So all the points that I'm using in the production possibilities frontier, they are efficient. Why? Because I'm using all the resources available in the economy. If we think about the B, it's an inefficient point, because maybe at this point I can devote more resources and I can reach to point A, point C, or another point which lays in the production possibilities frontier. And the D point is just like unbreachable. We cannot go there. So in this part, we can think about, let's think about a little change of this economy. So imagine that there is an advance in technological in the computer industry. Given this advance, the number of computers that each worker can produce is higher. So the production possibilities frontiers shifts outward. So we have again cars and personal computers. We have this, which is our initial point, which is an efficient point, is 700 cars, and at the same time I can produce 2,000 personal computers. But imagine there is a technological advance. Automatically, the production possibility frontiers, it goes up. But take like in account that the cars, we don't have any advance. Okay, they remain the same if I use all my resources just for producing cars. But on the other side, which is personal computers, I can see how if I use all the resources available in the economy, I can reach a higher point, which is over here. So we can see how we can pass from uh, producing 700 cars to 750 cars and 2100 personal computer. This is the point E. So this is devoted to the economic growth. So with this two simple model, we see a summary of the first words of first vocabulary that we have already seen in previous videos. So we are talking about the scarcity of resources, efficiency, the trade-off, what I have to produce, what do I have to produce, cars of personal computers, there is an opportunity cost. So the price of a thing is what you give up to get it. Okay, and economic growth, like in this case. So the next part of the book, of the chapter, so is more about the how, where are the branches of economics. So we can like divide basically microeconomics and macroeconomics. Microeconomics is the study of households and firms make decisions and how they interact in specific markets. So we go more like in the micro part, we go more like in the individuals or firms that they interact and how they interact. And macroeconomics is the way like how I understand all the phenomena, including inflation, unemployment, and economic growth. So you can see how like microeconomics is not even if they are kind of similar, we cannot say that from the particular point just the aggregation of microeconomics is the result is macroeconomics. There are different branches which they study different phenomena. And this is an important fact, which is the positive versus normative analysis. When we talk about positive statements are descriptive, so it's something that is a fact. It's something that maybe is not like subjective issue. So, for example, the inflation of my country, which is Colombia, is less than 10%. It is a fact. Okay, so descriptive, but maybe there is another part which is a normative statement, which is prescriptive. Prescriptive. So what does it mean? It means that Colombia should decrease inflation. Is it like something that is subtle? Is not is subjective? Is not something that it's just a position. So the second part we can think more about policy advisors is something that maybe is more like easier to refute, and in the first part is more like a scientist because it's something there is data which is not refutable, is something apart, I mean, which comes from study. So this is this is this is pretty much the chapter. I guess you understand what I wanted to say, and see you the next part of the that we are going to solve the exercises of the chapter. Thank you so much, and great success with the economics. See you.